But yeah, that is. I mean, I'm happy for you guys. I'm glad you're having fun. Um, I love, you know, is this 3 wins in a row or four?
Three, playing for four tonight.
Three. Playing for four. Okay.
I I don't remember the last time we won three in a row. It was like 2018. So you got to take the ones where you can get them.
Yeah, I understand.
But we can have a whole conversation about tanking and stuff later.
Yeah, I um, I feel like it's interesting because they're so close to 500 that you can kind of go either way. But they have so much momentum that I think there's a lot of optimism. I don't know if Denver is going to win the is going to win the Super Bowl, but hey, I don't know. You never know. I think that's fair.
I mean, once you get in the playoffs with one and done games, you never know. But that's
Right.
not where I'm banking on.
Okay. I think that's very safe, very reasonable, very fair. So let's get into it. Welcome to Four Corners, episode 104, I believe. We are live with Zach Gottlieb joining us once again, repping the Broncos tonight as they take on. Who are they playing?
Minnesota, Minnesota Vikings.
Minnesota. Okay, the Minnesota Vikings. Interesting, interesting. That should be a good game. Joshua Dobbs, Jefferson. Interesting
Jefferson's
timelines
out
around those
tonight,
two.
but
Oh, he's still out. He's still sitting out.
yeah, yeah,
Ah,
Hammy's still
that's
not quite there. But the Grit Lord Josh
that's good.
Dobbs is here.
That's good for my fantasy prospects, honestly. Okay, so as usual, hosting the show. I'm Rayvon Hackshaw. You can find me online at Rayvon Hackshaw. Joined by, as always, Peter Bucket since '88. How are your vibes?
Hey Ray, I actually started off with a pretty good day. I went to the gym, played some basketball, and I was in the first game of the day and like immediately realized my team was stacked. We won like 5 games in a row, and then it pains me to say this, Ray, but right before the sixth game, I had to walk up to one of the guys. I was like, you guys got to find another fifth guy. I'm done." I uh,
I think
I
quitting while you're ahead is okay.
I forgot my basketball shoes, so I was wearing just like regular, running tennis type shoes. And I, the first 2 times I tried to make a move with the ball, I fell down both times. Somehow I was still able
Okay.
to get the pass away and not turn the ball over. But yeah, I was not at a optimal equipment performance today. But I'll take the 5-0. We move.
Well,
I
that's
got
healthy. I'm glad you got a good workout in, and you're, safe and healthy, and here to join us for this lovely podcast.
That's right. Always here.
learning moments. Learning moments. Don't forget your shoes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, where do I start with this? Let's see.
The
I'm
Nuggets do
sad.
what? Basketball.
How do basketball? Yes. How does the game work? Are you supposed to put the ball in the basket? Is that how it works? Because I don't feel like they remembered that the whole time.
I don't. I'm so confused. What happened? It's two games in a row too, which is of the same mistakes, which is not good. I think this place to
Yeah.
start is defense, where they just haven't stopped anybody at the point of attack, and they're giving up easy buckets at the rim pretty consistently. It's been really, really rough. Tonight's a unique challenge with Mobley and Allen, but it's nothing that they haven't like faced or even tried to do anything with. They're just letting the guards get downhill so easy. Makes everything else easier.
Peter, do you kind of share Zach's sentiment as far as like defense is the place to start with this team, especially in this stretch of, I mean, Nuggets losses for the first time in a long time?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I think. Scott Hastings is, for years been on the point of like, if you have bad offense, it leads to bad defense and it makes it harder. I definitely agree with that. But at the same time, the Cavs were slicing up the Nuggets in the half court tonight. It wasn't just like the Nuggets were throwing the ball over the yard and giving up fast break points. Like they couldn't contain Darius Garland at all. And then whenever they did slow him down, he was either able to get an easy lob threat to Allen or kick it out to shooters or find Mobley on the short roll. He was hitting the little mid-ranger. And then if Mobley, they played good defense on him, he would just find it and play big passing with Allen. I thought the Cavs played beautiful basketball tonight, guys. I mean, the Nuggets weren't good, but, I was watching the Cavs broadcast. I always try to watch the other team's broadcast as much as I can. Not because I don't like the Nuggets guys. It's just because I'm trying to, like, get other people's perspective. And, about halfway through the third quarter, the Cavs announcer said, this is the best we've played all year. And so I haven't watched a ton of Cavs yet, but I saw the record. I was like, they're kind of middling, but that makes sense because they looked really good tonight. And I think that's kind of like they envisioned what this team could be once they finally added some shooting after really struggling last year in the playoffs against the Knicks. Strus and Niang really opened things up for them, even though they're not stars. They're just role players. But sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes you have your stars and you just kind of need them to get better and get better pieces to fit around them. And, obviously the Nuggets are missing one of their stars. I know the Cavs are missing Mitchell as well. But, I just thought the Nuggets, they just gave a regular season effort tonight. And just wasn't good enough. You compound it with the mistakes they made. And, really Porter was the only one I thought had a good game, to be honest.
I agree. He had a good night. And then Zeke made a 3, so does that qualify as a good night for him? Not really, but no, Porter was the only guy who showed up on time and then showed up at all, really, throughout this
for
game.
him, yeah.
I do feel like Zeke almost can be his own topic at this point, but I share a lot of your sentiments as far as defensively. I think Denver is struggling a lot. And I do want to give a lot of credit to Cleveland for playing an excellent game. I thought they executed really well in all of their offensive sets, the way they were cutting, moving off ball, the timing of everything, all very effective. At the same time, the thing I'm most frustrated with right now, as far as what Denver is doing, I gotta say it's the offense for me, and maybe that's just how I am as a person, but I can't help but feel like the Nuggets offense right now is so cluttered, so painful, so hard to really find any type of rhythm in, that it takes a lot of effort to really get anything done for Aaron Gordon, for Michael Porter, for Jokic, for a lot of these guys. And all that is to say that I can't help but feel like those are things are kind of taking away from what Denver is doing on the defensive end as well. That for Jokic, I mean, the amount of effort that he's putting in on the offensive end is just immaculate. Aaron Gordon, I feel like in a similar way, and that the offense shouldn't be this hard. Like I get that Jamal is out, right? Sure, they're down some talent, but I feel like they shouldn't be pulling teeth in the way that they are right now. And a lot of that is I'm not seeing the same, looking across the aisle, I'm not seeing that cutting. I'm not seeing the off ball movement. I'm not seeing the timing. I'm not seeing a lot of those things. I'm seeing a lot of ball watching. I'm seeing a lot of dumping the ball in the Jokic. Let's go stand over here in the corner and let's watch him cook. And I respect that because we all know Jokic is one of the best players in the world, if not the best player in the world. He deserves that kind of respect. But we can make his life a lot easier, and they can make their lives a lot easier as a whole, I think, if they put in a little bit more focus and emphasis on the offensive end. So I guess where do we go from here is, how do we fix it? Like, what is it? I mean, Peter, I'll throw it to you first. Going into the next game, what is one change you'd like to see them make that whether it's a lineup change or even something just tactically or something specific, what can Denver do better to alleviate some of the stresses that they're feeling on either end of the ball, really?
Maybe I'm gonna be a little harsh on him, but I don't really like the way Aaron Gordon is playing lately. I just feel like he's not being very confident right now. He is pressing a little bit. He is overthinking the game, and what I've noticed is people have been giving him credit lately for improving his basketball IQ and reading the game better and playing more like Jokic. And he has gotten pretty good at like quick decisions and quick passes. But here's my one problem with that. Aaron Gordon needs to remember why he got to the NBA. He needs to remember that he got to the NBA, being an elite freak athlete and not playing this like pitter patter style basketball. So, he's still attacking some, but a lot of times it's just like one of those break glass in a case of emergency type plays where it's just like, oh, well, there's nothing going on. Let me put my head down and see if I can get a call. I don't feel like he's playing with a lot of purpose right now. He's just kind of like catching the ball and like, oh, let's see what happens. Who's open, kind of trying to play like Jokic. And I don't think he should do that. I think he was on his best. I was at the game on Friday night when he's in that dunker spot and just looking for the lob and sticking the paint. He's fine with dribbling the ball, but I don't like his pull up threes. I think that doesn't work. And yeah, I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the head, Ray, saying like they kind of just throw the ball to Jokic and like stand around and let everybody save him. So I don't really know what other adjustments there are to make other than play better because we already know the formula works. Everybody just has to be more on point when Jamal is in there.
I think that's a great point. Aaron Gordon's kind of a big part of, not even kind of, he is a big part of this in that he needs to play up to his ability and do what he does best. I agree with all of that entirely. I think the other part, too, offensively is you need to find a go to play. What Jamal Murray is more than anything else for this offense is a safety blanket. Because when you need a play and you need a bucket and you absolutely have to have it, you always go to Jamal and Jokic 2-man game. They don't have that right now. They don't have something to back up on when the original action doesn't work. They don't have a play that can get them into the offense very well. Reggie and Jokic kind of have that chemistry, but obviously it's nowhere near as potent. So I feel like they just need to find something that they can go to on repeat multiple times in a row and get a good shot out of it to help kind of give some flow to their offense because it's janky. It's kind of muddled up a little bit. You're asking players to play outside of themselves. If you can just find one play, whether it's the KCP little dribble handoff into an elbow pull up or a curl screen for Porter or anything that you can just do multiple times in a row, I feel like that just opens things up a little bit and loosens up the offense rather than trying to make a perfect play or do exactly what you're supposed to do.
I could definitely second that. I think back to kind of the early days of Jokic when it wasn't as two main game oriented. One of the things that I really loved about how Denver played in that era is that almost every play started with Jokic having the ball or the point guard having the ball. Usually, it began with on both sides just the back screen. Something that's going to get guys moving, something that's going to get guys cutting, and then running that into their different DHO actions and kind of creating more movement, more decision making for defenses. I think when we allow we when the Denver Nuggets allow defenses to really key in on Jokic, maybe Jokic is going to score, maybe he's not, but it makes that kick out three, it's not really that hard to cover. It's not leading to any kind of secondary actions. And because of that, I think other teams are a little bit more fresh for their offensive possessions. And I think Denver themselves is also a little bit more tired when we're talking about plays not really going anywhere, breaking down, and guys like Aaron Gordon, guys like Michael Porter, they get that 3-point outlet and then they have to go kind of create something for themselves or feel like they need to dribble into traffic and kind of, I don't know, make something happen. I think if they could smooth themselves out offensively, I think it would kind of come back to them on the other side as well. But I also, I mean, the through line of this entire season has been raising up the bench unit and kind of getting them to a point of confidence and competence as far as being able to contribute. We've talked a little bit about the starters, but Zach, I'll throw it back to you. How do you feel? How do you feel about the bench so far? And of all the different varieties and iterations that they've tried, what do you feel like is working and what isn't working about the Denver Nuggets second unit?
I think the bench without Reggie Jackson's kind of missing, is kind of having an identity crisis because Gillespie and Pickett are slower players. They play in the half court. They just orchestrate things and, be a floor general. Whereas Reggie can kind of play some of that chaos, and he, in general, is a chaotic player. You don't really know what you're going to get out of him on a night-to-night basis. But I think overall, the bench has been what I expected. They're young and volatile. So we know that they're going to have good nights where Strothers can drop 21 points or Christian Brown can have 23 points, or you're going to have nights where no one can make a shot. It's a bench that doesn't have a ton of offense and needs to win with defense. And when you're not creating turnovers, when you're not doing those things to create issues for the other team, this bench isn't going to do much. So I don't mind what they did sitting Peyton tonight and putting in Justin Holiday. I think he's more functional as in the half court than Watson is at the moment. But I do think that in general, I would consider a lineup change having Reggie come off the bench, or at least staggering him with the bench to give that lineup some of the clarity that it was given at the beginning of the year, and I think was part of why they were successful, was because Reggie was able to at least keep it in control while also not being in control. So I don't know. It's hard to fix a bench that just doesn't have a lot of offensive upside in general, and the volatility you're going to have of having your best scorer being Julian Strother as a rookie who's 10 games into his rookie career, something like that. You're going to have to deal with these kinds of lumps and these kinds of things. This is another part where not having Jamal Murray is even more important, is the stagger with the bench gives him a true elite scoring option. So you kind of just have to weather it right now and hope that your defense is good enough to hold up.
Peter, I have an interesting stat for you. I'm wondering what you think of this. So I'm going to go through the Nuggets plus minuses. Not to say that plus minus in any individual game is some huge indicator of someone's personal quality, but I think there's a curious kind of effect in this game. Every single starter, from Michael Porter to Aaron Gordon, was double-digit negatives in this game. Minus 31 for Mike, minus 18 for Aaron, minus 16 for Yoke, KCP, and minus 13, minus 28 for Reggie. Every single bench player, a plus 7, a plus 3, plus 7, plus 1, plus 8, plus 10, plus 10. Those are Pickett, Brown, Najee, Holiday, Strother, Tyson, Gillespie, in that order. What does it say to you that those guys can somehow be in the positive on a night like this, and all the while the vibe and the energy of the team feel so negative about what the bench is producing out there?
Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but a lot of that was garbage time. But I think there's also the fact that Cleveland was missing a couple starters, so they brought in their best bench players to start, and their starters had a good night with against our starters, and so the bench had a better chance to go against guys that don't really play. The vibes, I mean, I got to give you a way more low hanging fruit about what's been going on the last couple games. The Nuggets are a really good team. Obviously, we know they won the championship, but the Nuggets sometimes act like they're more talented than they are. They need to understand that the rest of the NBA is really good too, and they're not good enough to just show up and win basketball games. They got out rebounded by double figures tonight, and I'm going to say it, they flat out been getting out hustled the last 2 games. Getting beat to loose balls. You know, talking to fans in the chat, complaining about the whistle. I thought all the foul. I don't think the refs did a bad job tonight. I felt like the Cavs were being more aggressive and getting to the basket and getting foul calls. So when you're playing lazy defense, you're going to hack more. So I just think that the Pelicans and the Cavs played harder than the Nuggets the last 2 games, and if you get out hustled, there's a good chance you can lose.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. Another thing I also think about that, as far as that stat, of course, looking at guys like Colin being a +10, I think obviously that's garbage time. But also, I think about how many different lineups Malone has been going to lately. Insofar as a lot of the guys that we're talking about, Zeke got minutes with Jokic tonight. Jalen Pickett got minutes with Jokic tonight. A lot of the bench players, I think Malone is experimenting in a lot of these ways, and one of the ways that he is trying to get them to a point of being passable is playing them with the starters more, specifically with Jokic more, and that's great for them. I also feel like we're not seeing the starting core play together as much. And in that reality, I think we're starting to see that there comes a cost with that to some degree, that it also puts KCP, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter in positions that they're not exactly going to be comfortable with or used to when they're surrounded by guys who aren't creating the same spacing, don't have the same connectivity, don't have the same chemistry with in the ways that they're used to playing. All that is to say, I don't know if there is a correct assortment of players that Malone has tried so far that is like right or wrong, because we've seen so many of them so far that
Yeah.
playing the bench with the starters or the starters with the bench or staggering or not staggering, I'm not sure if that really makes a huge difference when the players aren't exactly changing. And I mean, I think we can kind of touch on this before we transition a little bit into the last couple of games of the week and maybe the games ahead. But we've gone through 4 different point guards, only 2 centers. I'm gonna quote. I'm gonna say 2 centers. That's me being generous. Zach, I'm gonna ask you this: how do you feel like the Zeke Najee experiment is going as the backup center so far this year? I know it's something that Denver is obviously committed to. There's not a lot of alternatives on the roster outside of DeAndre Jordan, and the fact that Zeke is a mainstay, I think, is also necessary for just the continuity, his confidence that we are trying to work towards this point. But what do you feel like Zeke is doing well? What do you feel like he can do better? Maybe that's a leading question, but
No,
what are
I
your thoughts about it?
got your question. I think the most important positive for him is that he's been, as what the DNVR guys say, is tenacious Z. He's been playing with that energy and that tenacity every game so far.
Mhm.
We haven't seen a dip from him. We've seen limited changes in how productive and how useful it's been, but I think the energy's been there from him every night, which I really appreciate and I think is really good. My issue with Zeke is that he's not center sized. So his biggest value is defensively and that he can create a fully switchable 1 through 5 lineup. I don't but I don't think you can do that when you're playing Jalen Pickett and Colin Gillespie, who are not switchable 1 through 5. So now you've
Mhm.
got this kind of weird 2 through 5 able to switch, but you're stuck with your point guard, which kind of messes up all of your rotations a little bit. I feel like Zeke is optimal when you have Reggie in that bench spot, because while Reggie's not gigantic, he's got a ridiculous wingspan and he's big enough, and he can get a hand in face as much as anyone. So where Zeke is going to thrive is when you have a healthy lineup and Reggie is on the with the bench unit. Jamal's a big enough guard to do it. He can play in the post. He can bang around. But right now, I'm having a hard time with Zeke because he's just not. What Gillespie and Pickett can do really well is run pick and roll. At least that's what they did in college. They can run pick and roll. We haven't really seen it at the NBA level, and maybe that's because it's with Zeke, who's just not a roller at this point. He's a pick and pop guy. I almost wonder if it's better to have DeAndre Jordan in there for these kinds of games, and especially tonight where it's Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. And I don't remember a time where they were both off the floor at the same time. Maybe it's better to have that size in there with DeAndre Jordan. He's a better rebounder. He's bigger. He can just clog up the space a little bit more. When you're center defensively and you can't be on the perimeter like DeAndre can't, clog up the paint. And I feel like Denver just needed a guy to clog up the paint. The amount of lobs from Mobley to Allen or Allen to Mobley is just it was bad. So I'm still in ish on Zeke. I was never fully in on the idea to start with this year, but I don't feel any different than I did before. I think we were expecting this. At least I
Yeah,
was.
I was hoping for more. It's not to say that I'm impressed with Zeke's effort as much as you are. And I think Zeke has been very consistent in that way, especially for a guy who I has the aesthetic, I would say, of a very low key player. You know, someone who isn't the most loud, boisterous, in your face type of guy. It's great to see him consistently game in and game out be especially the offensive rebounder that he's been. He is creating a lot of second chance opportunities. Even if he's not catching the ball, he's tipping them up. He's just creating chaos in a lot of ways. But yeah, I would say, especially with him not being the shooter that he has been in the past, although, like as we noted, he made a three tonight. That's nice. Would be nice to see him make a few more. I think he lacks the kind of along what you're saying. I think he lacks the skills, the skill set, I should say, of what it takes to be a center in the NBA and play the role that they're. I don't want to say they're trying to force him into, but I think it's the role that Colin and or Jalen Pickett need, and that's someone who sets good screens, you know, with contact, right? You know, somebody who rolls hard and can be a vertical threat on those rolls, like lobbing to Zeke in a paint full of Jared Allen and Evan and Mobley, I think is a dubious task in a lot of ways, and that's not about Zeke's effort levels. That's just it's hard to be an athlete on that level in combination with the sort of size disparity. He catches the ball sometimes. I think that's kind of the
Sometimes.
challenge. I was watching the Clippers game the other day, and there was I remember a possession very clearly where KCP and he were running a pick and roll that if Zeke had gotten a seal, KCP wanted to dump a ball off to him on, wasn't even looking. Gonna be honest, not even really super comfortable in that kind of a setting, or being in the post, scoring them on the trees in those ways. And what you do see with a lot of successful undersized bigs is that they have great footwork. They have great post moves. They have great pump fakes and up and unders and craftiness that I think Zeke also is struggling with. So all that is to say, I would be a lot happier if he just went back to being a primary 3 point shooter. I know he shot poorly so far in the last year or so, but I feel like he's a lot closer to being a good shooter than he is to being all of those things, of being a good post player, a screener, all that type of stuff. So I guess, Peter, what I wanted to ask you is the alternatives right now, you know, not off the roster, but on the roster, is primarily DeAndre Jordan and maybe sometimes Aaron Gordon if need be. Do you feel like it'd be damaging to Zeke if they went away from him more often? You know, especially as they're trying to build his confidence and build up his repertoire. Would it be problematic, I think, if they pulled Zeke when he isn't playing well to throw DJ out there?
It's it's tough to answer because my initial reaction would be yes, anyone would. But I think for the 3 years he's been here, Zeke has always had pretty good body language. Like he's been pretty good about being a good teammate and like standing up off the bench and clapping, like even when the team's playing well. He hasn't been a guy that's like been sulking when he doesn't get minutes. He's always been pretty upbeat. They've already kind of started not trusting him because the last 2 games he hasn't played in the second half. I mean, he played in garbage time today, but if you noticed, Jokic got his 5th foul like 4 minutes into the third quarter. Zeke didn't come in all third quarter. So Moch already doesn't really trust him. But the thing is, like, I'm not going to say the sad thing. Like, we all want him to be good and to figure it out. The Nuggets are kind of stuck here, guys. They just extended him, and they can't trade him this year, so he kind of has to play. You know, at the very least, just because they need the body. I mean, Vlatko's out for the year. Hunter Tyson, I was kind of hoping would maybe get a chance, but I'm going to trust the coaching staff. He's just not ready if he's in the G League. I mean, that was probably just because they wanted to get minutes, but hopefully he's doing well down there, and if he's killing it, maybe he comes up, but we can't count on that. So yeah, the only other alternative is like I like when he comes in the game early to play next to Jokic, and then you run with AG at center in the second half. It's kind of a weird rotation, but I also like your idea of just like maybe have him roll less and have him space more, because I think that does two things. One, it gives you a different look of, maybe he can either get open shots, guys that aren't used to, defending out that far, or maybe pump and drive. But the other thing it does is it opens up the lane for everybody else. I don't want to be too negative on this podcast, because one thing I forgot to mention earlier, if there's been one really bright spot of the bench, Christian Brown has been balling lately. And I need to come clean about something I said last week that was completely wrong. I said that between Brown, Strother, and Watson, I trusted Strother the most right now offensively. And turns out he was just having a couple of good games, and then he went right back to being a rookie these last 2 games. So I mean, Christian Brown had 25 points on Friday night, career high. But you know what the beautiful thing about it was, guys? It didn't look like an accident. It wasn't like he was just like some random heat check guy coming in, hitting a bunch of threes. He did hit a couple of threes from the top of the arc. It looks like they actually kind of look like design plays. Like maybe the coaching staff knows like that's his spot. I mean, that's where I always like to shoot from, straight on, getting a good angle on it. But he was just driving a ton, getting fast break points, cutting off, seeing Jokic up top. Like, he's got to be like a coach's dream, man. Just the way he always attacks the basket nonstop. I mean, I think that's the thing we all learned at a young age playing basketball. Is like when you attack the basket, good things usually happen. And Christian Brown is a guy I definitely trust, and he's going to be big for this team going forward.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, you said there's no one you trust less than Christian. For me, it's Zeke. There's no one I trust less with the ball in their hands than Zeke. I don't think he has plans. I don't think there's an advantage to be had. I just don't want to see him with the ball in the post, really. He had an interesting play tonight where he got caught off on the baseline, kicked it over to Justin Holiday, and honestly, thank God he was there, because he had the wherewithal to see a Christian Brown diving towards the basket and found him for a great play at the rim. But those are really the plays that they need, I think. When you talk about, we're talking about refereeing earlier, and I think there's a conversation to be had about the relationship between the Nuggets and Tony Brothers, and Jokic and Tony Brothers, and I think that's fair. But at the same time, you're not going to get calls if you're not attacking the basket, if you're not creating those sources of contact, if you're not getting guys and creating that contact in a context where guys are in rotation, defenders, I mean, are in rotation and trying to recover, and you're getting them out of position when you are. So having a guy like Christian Brown and whenever any of the other Nuggets can be a good cutter in the way that he is, I think that can only be helpful for Denver. And if Zeke can pull out a defender from the paint, as much as I love his tenacity, I'd much rather he shoot 3 or 4 threes a game and shoot 35 to 40% than get 4 offensive rebounds off of terrible possessions. So I don't want to be down on Zeke either because Denver is kind of committed to him. I think the extension says that the Denver Nuggets are making a bet that in the long term, Zeke can be a contributing member to the Denver Nuggets. At the same time, it just doesn't look great right now. That's all I'm going to say.
I didn't like the term of the
So,
contract. I didn't like the term of
sorry?
the extension more than anything. Like a 4-year deal is a long commitment for a guy who has not given you, at least for me, enough reason to earn a 4-year deal. He was a guy where it's like if you want to extend him, give him 2, and make it an option on the second year if you need to, or do something, because
Zach, if the Nuggets draft or sign a real backup center next year, would you feel better about the deal if he's playing the backup 4?
yes, I think Zeke's a 4. Ultimately, I don't think he's a center.
Yeah.
I think he's been square peg round hole into being a center. But he's not big enough, he's not girthy enough, and he doesn't have the skill set of a center, which
Yeah.
you can play him as a center if you're playing a 5-out offense, but Denver doesn't run a 5-out offense. So you need guys who can play in the post a little bit, even if it's the high post, the mid post, anything. And for me, I just haven't seen it from him yet. And maybe I want to say yet because I hope that something can come from it. I'm losing hope in that part more than anything, but I just haven't seen that from him. If they move him to the 4, I'd feel more comfortable with him, especially if he gets his shot figured out. Whatever he has to do to get his shot, which I think number one is just be consistent. He's changed his shot every year since he's been in the league. It's changed every single year. You're not going to
Yeah.
have a good shot if you're having an identity crisis with your shot every year.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I want to give him some grace in the sense that he is 22, right? I think there is still a lot of room for him to grow as a person and as a basketball player within the next 4 years. So I don't want to write off the deal as like this is never going to be worth it, especially when talking about Denver's forward prospects right now. I think eventually Aaron Gordon is going to need to be, unless he signs back for a much cheaper deal, I think we're going to have to find cheaper alternatives. So whether that's Peyton Watson or whether that's Zeke Naji, when I think about his deal, I think about it as a guy who maybe he can fill that role a lot more than maybe he can be a backup center. And that maybe down the line they do go out and find a guy who can fill in there either in the draft or free agency. Kelly Olynyk, guy I still like. I'm just saying. I
Nerlens
don't think
Noel.
it's going to be a lot harder to find right now because with his extension. So as far as I understand the CBA, which as nebulous as it is, Zeke would need to, we would need to send out $3 to $4, $5 million more than we get back if we trade Zeke because he will go to another team as his extension contract average, and he will be sent from us as his current rookie deal contract average. But and outside of that, who does Denver really have to trade that's worth a lot of money? Reggie? And do you want to trade Reggie? He's playing so well, honestly, to my
Yeah.
surprise. Denver doesn't have too many options. I think they'd
No,
have
I
to
don't
look at
think.
maybe the buyout market. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think the trade route is looking promising right now, unless unless you're moving on from a core piece, unless you're moving Mike or AG, and I wouldn't go that route right now. But since you're already talking in the trade realm, um, is it too early in the season, Ray, for a hot take?
I mean,
Never.
I was talking about trades like a month and a half ago, so go ahead.
Okay. Now I realize I'm probably just overreacting to 2 road losses here in November, but as currently
Um,
constructed, the 2023-24 Denver Nuggets are not repeating. Now, don't take it as like I don't think they have a chance at all, but I haven't seen enough from the bench. Like Christian's been good, Reggie's been good. So when Jamal comes back, theoretically, if everybody's healthy, that's 7 guys you trust. You got to have one more just competent big guy. Okay, like I really didn't think Jeff Green would be that big a deal, but like he did give us good minutes in that playoff run. So if you could just find anybody, maybe it's somebody on the roster, maybe it's Zeke, maybe it's DeAndre, I don't know. Maybe it just has to be Aaron Gordon playing backup 5 again, but you just need like one more competent guy that knows what he's doing. Maybe it's Justin Holiday. I mean, he's looked the thing about Justin Holiday is, guys, he doesn't wow you, but he also doesn't make loud mistakes, right? He's like the anti Peyton Watson. Peyton Watson makes a crazy block and then has like a dumb turnover or dribbles the ball off his foot. So I'm having a hard time seeing the young guys like come to fruition quick enough because Jalen Pickett looks like a deer in the headlights. I mean, he just looks completely scared shitless out there. I don't think he's ready. And then Collins just too small. Like flat out, he's not. He can't be on the like floor in the playoff game. I mean, he's on a 2-way anyway, so it's not like he was in the plans to be on the playoffs this year. But I just I'm already kind of feeling like whether it's trade or buyout, they're gonna have to add a body somewhere.
so I guess define big. Do you mean like a front court player or just someone who is like 6'6" to 6'8"?
Yeah, I like minimum 6'6". Like if it was who's the guy that just got traded again from the Clippers to the Sixers? Kenyon Martin's kid. He's like 6'6", but he plays forward. You know, he's like a big 6'6". Um,
Okay.
you know, just anybody that can defend and either dunk or space the floor, like one of the two. You know, you've always liked Derek Jones Jr. for years, right? I
Yeah.
think he's on the Mavericks now, though, so he's not going to be available. When he was on the Bulls, he would have been a good target, but like the Mavericks are good now, so they're not going to get rid of him. But just like a
Are they?
functional bench
I think they're
player.
feasible.
I mean, the guy that everybody dreams about is Caruso. I just feel like the price is going to be too high on Caruso, guys.
It is.
Oh yeah. It would be
And I don't think Caruso
He's
solves
a
our
guard anyway, I
problems.
guess. Yeah, he doesn't. He's a guard anyway. Never mind.
right.
He's like the more developed version of Christian Brown, ultimately, and a little bit
Yeah.
smaller.
And worse hair.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
But
Um,
all that is to say, like, I think
So he
for
hurts
any
the
player,
vibes.
actually, I think he helps the vibes. Like, but I think you would give up so much
Oh, bald guy
of the
energy.
vibes anyway.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with ball guys. Like, that's not what I want. I don't want to attack the ball, okay? But at the same time, I don't think any guard or perimeter player in Denver's offense is having an easy time right now. Just because of the nature of the clutter on the interior and not having that pick and roll partner and not having that spacing, whether it's Peyton or Jalen or Colin or Reggie or a lot of times even Jokic. I think a big reason he's shooting so many threes is that the spacing isn't there. Like if Jokic isn't taking these threes, if Aaron Gordon isn't taking these threes, I don't really see a lot of hope for Denver to win these games just because teams are packing the paint and they're sitting down there and saying, "We'll let you shoot all the ugly, no paint touch threes that you want," basically. And I think it's almost unfair to all those guys. Like we could bring in Alex Caruso and be really excited about it, but I don't think we would see that much improvement. Yes, he's a better ball handler. He's probably a better shooter than Christian right now on average, but if it's still You're still working with the same sort of. We've seen so many different iterations of Denver's lineups. There is still a common thread is that the front court is just really cluttered right now. So
I would kill to have
that's
Vlatko right now.
yeah, that would be nice. I miss Vlatko. Obviously, I'm one of the. I don't want to say I'm the biggest Vlatko stan in Nuggets Nation, but I'm one of them.
Peter almost kicked me
At the
off a
same,
couple of years ago because I said he should be in the rotation. I remember that. I'll never forget it.
I
but
was wrong.
uh,
no, I think
y'all were
it's
wrong.
a good point though. We need a big somewhere. Whether it's whether it is Justin Holiday who can take that spot, or if it's Peyton Watson just ascending, which I have a solution for Peyton Watson, I feel like, but you need either someone or someone to step up or something to happen. And if that's Justin Holiday, awesome. That's great. We need that. If it's someone on the buyout market, be proactive and go do the thing. I I wonder if the Clippers will be forced to give up Daniel Tice for clear and obvious tampering, and we could go sign Daniel Tice for cheap. Um, but just do something. You need something different than what they're doing right now because it's just not working. That front court, if you force the front court to play in a half court setting, you're not gonna get the results you want. I feel like it's
Hmm.
too early in the year to go to your AG stagger. That was saved for the playoffs specifically for a reason, which was to keep him fresh to play against centers for for more minutes than he's used to. And I just don't want to do that right now if I don't have to, especially because it's regular season. You don't want to pull out those kinds of tricks for regular season games. But I don't know. I feel like I agree with Peter on this one that they just need something different. They need something. They just need to be better ultimately and find a better fit.
Yeah, if there's a silver lining here, I will say that luckily it's still super early, so there's plenty of time for the young guys to get reps, and it's nowhere near panic time. Like we were talking about Vlatko a little bit in the chat the other day, and I was saying how I'm really sad that like if there has to be a roster change this year, Vlatko's going to be the guy that gets cut, because he can't play this year. So it wouldn't make sense to keep him on the roster unless you're like 100% set on him coming back. Oh wait, no, he's signed through next year, isn't he? So
Yeah, he
yeah,
has
that'd
more
be
years on him.
yeah, I think he's got a player option, so that would be, or maybe just flat out signed. So I guess that actually won't happen then, unless they want to eat that money. But I was thinking maybe a way to get a player would be like when one of these big deals goes through, maybe the Nuggets sneak in there as like a fourth team, taking on a salary. Like if the Bulls end up trading Zach LaVine somewhere, maybe they also want to offload Andre Drummond and the other team doesn't want Drummond. Like I feel like he'd be an improvement over Zeke. Don't really know how much Malone would trust him because we've seen that go badly too, where we trade a second round pick for JaVale McGee and then he just sits on the bench. Not necessarily saying that was the wrong decision. We've seen JaVale McGee play, but it's still frustrating to give up assets and then not really get anything back for it. So I'm sure Booth's looking at everything. They'll get creative and you know they'll manage. I mean, guys, we're 9-4. It's not like the sky is falling, but
Yeah,
I do think that if it becomes untenable, the front office isn't just going to sit on their hands. They're going to do something because they understand that you only get so many years, with a generational player's prime. You gotta do everything you can to maximize the window.
And I also think that there are still things that they can do even short of roster changes that could make them a lot more effective. Like we talked a little bit earlier about genuinely playing five out, which I think makes a lot of sense, and I feel we talk a lot about Peyton Watson, Jalen Pickett, some of these other guys as guys who struggle with decision making. It simplifies a lot of the decisions if you do have more spacing, if you're not working with as much clutter. If and I think from a coaching emphasis perspective, Malone has always been a guy who is more focused on defense than offense. not to say that it's not important, but that he sees it more as his imperative to get guys ready on that end, and leaves the offense more up to personal responsibility. I think there are points that they could make to be better. Talking about the movement, talking about the cutting, talking about the spacing, talking about the timing, that if they made those changes, it could make everything flow a little bit easier. And I think that maybe even you go to DeAndre Jordan sometimes. Maybe Hunter Tyson, as much as Hunter Tyson is in the G League right now, I don't exactly think it's because they don't believe in him, like that he's fully not ready, but so much as they've just got a lot of options at the two through four, 2, 3, 4. They've got a bunch of guys who can play. Peyton Watson didn't really see the floor much today. I'm kind of
I don't think
curious
he played at
about
all.
why that is. Sorry?
I don't think he played at all today. I think he was a full DNP.
Right. So I don't know if that's just because Holiday did play and he just doesn't want to play both of them. That might be something. But I mean, I felt like he's contributed pretty decently. I mean, yes, a lot of these guys are going to make mistakes, and the mistakes are going to feel impactful. But at the same time, they're also contributing. I think Peyton Watson's been a great defender for Denver, and Justin, even Hunter, I think has had great moments, and I think he can have great moments. We're talking about looking for offensive continuity. We're talking about looking for offensive flow, spacing, those kinds of things. I wouldn't write him off yet as contributing this season. So I'm kind of optimistic still. I'm gonna have to also admit I might be wrong because 70 wins, that is not the pace they're on right now. As much as I was high on that, especially
Let
without
me
Jamal. But go ahead.
let me throw out a name for you that we could try. Jay Huff.
Okay, that,
He's on the
that yeah,
two-way.
sure.
He's been playing
He's on
well
the two way.
he's playing well in Grand Rapids right now. He's been
He
mostly
is a
efficient.
center.
He's a true center as much as anything. He's more mobile than DJ. He's kind of a little bit of the middle ground because he has the size of DeAndre Jordan and less, but some of the mobility that Zeke has as well. You'd have to run things differently, but I do think it could be just an option. May as well try it.
Malone has tried literally I think he's tried everything. He's trying everything that he can right now. So I wouldn't write it off. Yeah, it's so early. They have lots of different options, and I think they can continue to explore those. I hope that they continue to explore those and don't get too bogged down, locked up in any one kind of way of playing. So yeah, I think we can come out of this experience having learned some lessons. I mean, I think Jamal will be back soon-ish, maybe. We're
Allegedly,
thinking
is running
about
full
it.
sprints today.
Yeah. I mean, with hamstrings, it's tough because I feel like you can feel okay about going 80%, 85%, 90%. It's that going 100, going 105% that's where you don't know how it's going to hold up, and so there's always that risk. But I think Jamal will return at some point, and when you get him back, you kind of get back into an alignment that makes more sense. That maybe I don't love that the bench plays like they need a savior offensively, but at least they'll have it. They'll have Reggie back. They'll be able to stagger Jamal again, and they'll get bailout shots when they need them. And they can explore J Huff and all their other options. And I think looking ahead, they've got another game against the Rockets coming up on Friday. They've got a game against the Pistons tomorrow. So as much as it's a back-to-back, it's the Pistons. I mean, I think that's a very comfortable. We talked about trap games last week. I think that's a great get
And they
right
played
game.
today too, so they're on a back-to-back as well.
Oh, but we're
Yeah,
doing
so
that.
at least it's.
No, never mind. Sorry, I forgot who we played
No,
today.
you're good.
Oh, we were still in New Orleans. the Cleveland to Detroit back-to-back is much better than the New Orleans to Detroit back-to-back we did last year. No, it was to Milwaukee.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's reasons for optimism. We're playing the Magic as well, so
Yeah, the
to
team's
Gary
probably
again,
already in
that's
Detroit.
Honestly.
probably. So yeah, I mean, games against the Pistons, the Magic, the Rockets for hopefully some revenge, and then Sunday wrapping up at home against a Spurs team. We get to see Victor Wembanyama. They are tanking. I'm gonna be okay. So I guess every week I'm gonna call out a team for
Oh yeah.
tanking. Last week I called out the Wizards for tanking. I and maybe we can get back to that in a second. But the Spurs, I feel like they're also a team that I'm looking at them and I'm like, y'all, are you really trying to win? I don't know.
Well, Ray,
I don't see
are
it.
you seeing what they're doing? They're playing Sohan at point guard, like deliberately.
Yes,
That's why we
exactly.
know they're tanking, because Trey Jones is 100
Not
times
going
better
well.
at point guard. Yes, Trey Jones should be the starting point guard.
Yeah.
And we're still sticking with Point Sohan. That's how I know. That's how we know they're tanking. It's confirmed.
Yeah. They also were
Right.
like up by 15 on the Memphis Grizzlies at home yesterday and lost the game. Memphis has half their team out.
I feel bad for
So
them.
yeah, we
Yeah.
can't lose to the Spurs.
We literally might not be physically able to lose to the Spurs, is what I'm saying. So we will get there's some get right. I think coming up in the Nuggets universe, we will be back in the we can be able to say, hey, every Nugget is good at something. I'm optimistic. Can I come back to something from last week?
Yeah.
This man Jordan Poole is ruining Wes Unsel's career. Okay, it is not fair. I don't know if you guys are keeping dialed in at all to the Jordan Poole experience, but I am deeply resentful
Ray, I'm about
that
OD'd
this
on Wizards
man.
talk. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm not gonna. Okay, I don't want to hold on for too long. I just. It's not right. It's not right. It's a big. It's mistakes have been made in DC as far as expecting him to be some type of leader, some type of positive contributor to winning. Is what I'll say before we kind of wrap up.
Can I make one last Nuggets observation before we head out of here?
Please.
So I think for years, Denver traditionally is a team that wants to play fast, right? They play fast at home, get you running in altitude, running out of the gym. Doesn't play as well on the road. In the Jokic era, because of Jokic's, build, they haven't been as much fast break. The last year they actually did get a few more fast break points, but they're still like so good in the half court, which is what translated to two things, right? Being able to win on the road. This is like the best Nuggets road team in the regular season, like the last like 5 years that Nuggets have ever really had. Even in the Melo days, like the Nuggets were never really a good road team, and obviously that translated to the playoffs, which is good. But this year, I do feel like losing some of the veterans they did, losing Bruce Brown, losing Jeff Green. This is a younger team. They're kind of back to the more traditional, like, young guys play well at home. So the Nuggets are 7-0 at home right now. And I guess what I'm saying is, like, I'm not going to be all that surprised if this trend kind of continues where the Nuggets just have, like, kind of a lot of stinkers on the road. And as, like, diehard fans, we, like, get mad. We just, like, dissect the bench and panic. Where I guarantee you the rest of the guys are like, didn't play well tonight. It's November. We didn't have Jamal. Like they're gonna turn the page. Like that's one thing I have so much respect about professional athletes for, especially the NBA, is like they have to have a short memory because they got another game tomorrow. So yeah, they played bad. Obviously, Moch isn't happy, but the good thing is in this sport, there's plenty of times where you get less than 24 hours and you can go do something about it. It's not like football where you gotta wallow in the loss all week.
I
I
agree.
actually think that
I hope he
playing
doesn't.
tomorrow. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You
Playing
got it.
tomorrow, I think, is actually good for this team because this was another stinker. They can just take the odor out tomorrow. This is, showering before you go to bed and showering in the morning. just really keep yourself clean and feeling good to go. I think it's a good thing they play tomorrow, even though we hate back-to-backs. That's probably you got blown out, so your starters didn't have to play all their minutes. Jokic had to sit for 7 minutes in the third quarter. Like, he sat for over half of the second half of this game. He should have fresher legs than normal for back-to-back. So I think they're in a good place to be advantageous.
If things go wrong, Nuggets fans, you can totally at me if I'm about to jinx them, but the Pistons have like no shooting. So if the Pistons like light it up from 3 tomorrow, it'll be the first time all year, because I was listening to the Low Post the other day, and I forget the name of the guest he had on, but the guy was basically beside himself because he's like, the Pistons in the modern NBA start 4 non-shooters. Like, we've been talking about for a while how you can't start 2 non-shooters, and the Pistons start 4. So if the Nuggets can at least just defend the paint tomorrow, they should be okay.
If they show up tomorrow, again, I don't know if they show up tomorrow, they should win. I just hope Malone takes the offensive clunkiness a little bit more seriously than that's not my job. I don't love that, but hey,
I would like them to win the rebounding battle.
I still trust him. That too. That would be nice. Boxing out is important, especially on those long threes. Like, so much of, I feel like their struggles have been they're facing teams that shoot a lot of threes, and they are not sealing those perimeter guys who are getting those long rebounds. So
well, I think there's been like 2 or 3 games in a row where Mike and Aaron have like both gone up for the ball. They're right there, nobody else around, and then they like knock it away from each other, and the other team gets.
Am I the only one who doesn't care about that? Like, yes, it sucks, but like, it's just like a random thing that happens sometimes. I feel like we're making it a bigger thing than it needs to. I feel like we're making this indictment on, like, usually it's Mike. Oh, that Mike is terrible.
No, you're right. I'm not saying it's like the worst thing ever, but it's just not your night. Like, Dean Wade had that bullshit 3 he threw in the corner tonight. Then there was another position where the Nuggets played great defense for 22 seconds, and they kicked it out to Niang, and he hit like a shot clock 3. I'm just like, these nights happen.
Sometimes you got to take the chat. And Cleveland played well tonight. They did.
They played well. Nuggets played poorly. Cavs are not 20 points better than the Nuggets.
Mike will hit shots. Jamal will be back.
Mike hit shots.
I hope Aaron keeps shooting. Aaron needs. I do think Aaron needs to keep shooting. Like, the fact that they're not guarding him. Yes, I would agree. Just take the open shot. Like, if they're gonna leave you open on the wing, just shoot it. It's cool. It's fine. Like, I'll take those misses. I'd rather you do that than become a non-shooter. You're not Mason Plumlee. Don't be Mason Plumlee. Nobody likes Mason Plumlee. I don't like Mason Plumlee for that reason.
I want Mason Plumlee.
I like. You're really like hurting my soul right now. But yeah, he would be an upgrade over.
It's not just to say I miss him. There's a legitimate reason for it.
He can pass. He can pass, which is like that's a skill. He sets good screens, unlike some people. So
what have we talked about? They need a playmaker.
Sure.
Someone to, like, a secondary or tertiary playmaker, and a guy who sets hard screens and can roll to the basket. Is he elite at those? No. But can he do it passably enough? Yes.
He can do a little Mason Plumlee dunk where he just that's his thing. Zeke can't. I've never seen Zeke.
Can I just say something about? I just want to say something about Mike real quick. I think his whole like shooting slump has been way overblown. I mean, he went 5 for 9 tonight from 3, which helps. I looked it up earlier today. He was 31 of 89 on the season. So literally he's now at 34 for 98. So, if he hits his next couple of threes, 36 out of his first 100, it's four 3-pointers less than being a 40% 3-point shooter. It's not a lot of baskets. It's not a big sample size. So he's about to shoot his next 100, and if he's back to his old self, I think that number is going to even out. Like, he's he was off to a slow-ish start, but this isn't like some major slump. It's just he had a couple of rough shooting games after the ankle injury to start the year. I feel like he's fine.
I think Mike's shooting slump is more based on vibes than actual stats, because we're so used to just, if you see Porter open, it's going in. Like there's just that inherent thought that it's
Right.
automatic, and the vibe is that it's not automatic.
Right. He hasn't been
now, and
elite.
when
He's
people are
simply
saying
been
it's a slump,
good.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. We're almost spoiled, and the vibes are messed up because of it more than it is anything about his actual shooting ability or the numbers. The numbers are fine. They're not where you exactly want it to be
Right.
with him, but he's been so good at every other part of the game so far that it doesn't matter to me.
I have two
And he's
thoughts
been
about
just
his
missing
shooting.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
One of them is that if he could replace a few of his sidestep threes with maybe even mid rangers, I think that might be a little bit more healthy for his shot profile. Not because mid rangers are the most efficient shot, but for him, when I see him step in for that little 15-footer, I feel like it's real comfortable. I feel a lot more confident about that going in that he could get a little bit more in rhythm if he started off with some easier shots to get him going. And then the other part is just taking your time a little bit. I see him on some of these just like wide open shots, which are the ones that I think the worst vibe killers is when you miss a wide open shot. And I feel like he pulls it as quick as if somebody has a hand right in his face. And I think you could just just relax a little bit. And I think he'll be fine. And overall, I think he'll be fine. It's not a concern for me. So, unless you guys had anything more you wanted to add, Zach, I do appreciate you coming on the show. It's always great having you. We wish the Broncos the best of luck tonight. And I hope all my friends are not sad tomorrow because, the volatility is real in the emotional state of Broncos Nation. So, yeah, you can find me online at Ravon Exshaw. You can find Peter at Bucketsons88. You can find Zach at Zach Gottlieb. And yeah, this has been Four Corners. You, as always, go Nuggets, and we'll see you next time. Ending the stream is hard somehow.